Hey there, hi there, hello there. Here we are again with another edition of Bowen on the Birds in violation of several uh, modes of ideas of what's tasteful and probably against the better judgment of the people at A2D Radio. We're back with you. It is Thursday afternoon as usual for us, and we are hoping and planning to have Clay Harbor on our show today. Clay was an Eagles tight end, drafted in the fourth round in 2010 from Missouri State. Spent 3 years with the Eagles. Was a casualty of the Chip Kelly regime in 2013 and also the drafting of Zach Ertz. That probably had a lot to do with it. Went on to play several more years, mostly with the Jaguars, but a few other teams in there. Clay now lives in Chicago, and one of the things we wanted to talk to him about is one of the things he's done since his football career is he appeared on The Bachelorette and on, I believe, Bachelor in Paradise. And we definitely want to ask him about those experiences and what he learned from them. Clay is doing some analysis now, some broadcast stuff in the Chicago area, and he's real plugged into the Bears. He also still keeps up with the Eagles, though, and the Jaguars. So, we have, obviously, we're less than a week from Eagles camp here. And we also kind of keep an eye on the Jaguars because of Doug Peterson. So, we want to talk to him about all that. Let's bring Clay aboard here. I understand he is in the wings. And there he is. All right. How you doing?
I'm good, Les. How you doing?
Just great. I really appreciate you coming on with me today.
No, it's my pleasure. Love talking Eagles, love talking ball. Even though, the Bachelorette isn't my favorite thing to talk about. We can,
Okay.
I'm just messing around. We can answer some questions about that. That was a fun time in those days.
You see, here's the deal. I am not, that's not my demographic. I don't watch those shows. I marvel at their popularity because I don't get it. But what did you get from that? Did you enjoy it? Was it what you expected it to be? What was your game plan going in and how did it all work out?
Yeah, Les. So, I'll tell you the story leading up to it. So obviously, 3 years with the Eagles, 3 with the Jags, and I had a half year with the Patriots, half year with the Lions, year with the Saints. I was coming off that last season with the Saints, which I was on IR for most of the season there. And in my thoughts, I'm like, man, I don't know how much time I got left here. Maybe this could lead to something after football. I had seen some guys like Jordan Rodgers, some guys like Jesse Palmer, some guys that make some things
after. Exposure as a personality.
Film, who knows what could come from it. And so I was like, okay, like this, they reached out to me. I didn't have to do any of the casting stuff. Basically, I just show up. And I thought, hey, if I could find my wife that way, why not? I was still a single guy and was open to it. So, I ended up doing it. And unluckily, I ended up getting re-injured on the show. It's actually an injury. The injury that put me out for the year with the Saints wasn't fixed properly. Didn't know it at the time. And the first thing I did since then was unfortunately play a football game on The Bachelorette. And I found out quickly that it wasn't fixed the first time I used that wrist.
And they probably put that in there just for you, right? They don't usually play football.
No, they don't usually play football. They wanted me to play football against the male model, against the dictionary salesman, against the musician, all the other guys from The Bachelorette, because they thought it would be good TV. I think it was, but unfortunately for me, I was at the brunt of a lot of those jokes with the NFL football player getting hurt on The Bachelorette.
But this would have happened had you gone to camp or whatever, you would have, or spring work or whatever, you would have figured this out pretty quickly.
And it wasn't, I went and I got it rechecked like 2 or 3 times. I go, this thing isn't getting any better. And the guy goes, no, you're good. It's I go, it doesn't feel the strength, everything's gone. And it just wasn't ready to go. But the only difference was, Les, if I would have done it on a field, instead of having, 8 years of 8 years under my belt, it would have been like 9 or 10, because you would have got that extra accredited season. And that year, I didn't know if I was going to get, any looks, who knows? At that point, it was after the free agent signing period, but before training camp, I started getting all these calls. So I ended up having to rehab, and I ended up going in rehabbing enough to where I thought I was ready to play again. I had a workout with the Bills, the 49ers, the Jets. The first one was the Bills. If you're healthy and in shape, we're going to sign you as Brian Dable, who's my tight end coach at Buffalo at the time. At New England, was now at the time the offensive coordinator for Buffalo. And I was rehabbing my wrist in New York, and unfortunately, like a couple weeks before, because New York doesn't have any fields. They're these small. It's like the space is hard to come by. So
right.
It was like a football field I was playing with, and I ended up running into a wall, and that spiraled into me tearing my groin on the field halfway through the workout with the Bills a few days before training camp. And, unfortunately, that's where my career ended. That was my last workout because I had to cancel the rest of the workouts. Was getting calls during the season because the next season after my injury, couldn't go to any of those workouts. And 2 years basically after I had taken a snap, I was ready to go again. But after you're out for 2 years, it's really hard to get back in.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate, and it's not uncommon, as you know. Unfortunately, it's the whole injury treatment thing is kind of a very delicate subject in the NFL, and I think most of the team doctors and people like that mean well, but I've had so many stories over the years of things that didn't work out the way they were supposed to, or rehab that doesn't work out the way it's supposed to, and guys just end up, it seems very few people leave the game on their terms.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The quote I've always heard that I've found to be true, unfortunately, personally, but with most of my friends that, after the NFL is the game will be done with you before you're done with it.
Yeah.
And, that's something that was always tough for me. And I always thought I was a guy. I mean, you probably saw some of it, great in practices, training camp, but in the games, it just, for whatever reason, just never came together. Never got to show my full ability. And I had some really good years in Jacksonville. But when you're playing with the worst offense in the league, the numbers really don't add up to the quality of your play. So, unfortunately, it for me, people are like, oh, you played 8 years, it's great. You made some decent money, like all this. But I'm like, in my mind, I should have been much better than I was.
Oh, okay. I can understand that, and I think, but Clay, I think almost all of us have that feeling about our careers.
Yeah.
I'm sort of semi-retired now, and I, in my career, I did all right, but, I would have liked to have done a little more. I would like to have had another opportunity or two, here and there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so how have you come off of that? That's such a hard thing for players. You're a young man. Suddenly the only thing you've ever done as an adult is gone, but you got an MBA now. And so how did you get that? And what was your thought process as you transitioned away from football?
It's a real confusing time, Les. And I always thought, hearing people say, make sure you have stuff planned, like what you're doing after football. And I was one of the guys that was, never really paid attention. No, I'm going to worry about football now, but it's hard. It's confusing. You think about it, you go through high school, 4 years, college, 4 years, 5 years. In my case, I got redshirted of playing football. That's 9 right there, 8 years in the league. So, I mean, that's 17 years of playing football and kind of just doing that with such a good routine, with such structure, and just having all this laid before you, knowing exactly what you're doing every day when you wake up, your goal, your strive. Okay, I'm going to do this season, this season. So all of a sudden, that's over, and really trying to figure out what you want to do for, the rest of your life. And then you also throw in the fact that a lot of guys don't have to technically do much, but obviously, okay, what are you going to do with your time then? So It comes down to figuring out, what do you want to do? And for me, that was difficult. I did some TV stuff for a while, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, The Bachelor in Paradise, and I've gotten plenty of more offers to do TV shows and different, so I kind of stay in that realm. But I've decided to get out of that. I said, to me, that wasn't very fulfilling. It was just not what I wanted to do. So then, I started some fitness stuff. I started some workout classes, personal trainer, strength conditioning coach. Kind of decided that was more of just a hobby for me. Love staying in shape, working out, but not as a job, so that was something I crossed off. And then I started thinking, okay, I need to do something. So education. And the NFL does do a good job in some of the things you get after football. They do a good job, and one of them is with your continuing education. If you go to the NFL, and if you go through the programs they have and you get accepted to colleges, most of the time they will give you scholarships to go back to school. So that's something I said, I'm going to do this. What is one of the better business schools in the country? Top 15 business school in the United States, Kelley School of Business. I get accepted. NFL gives me a scholarship to go there. So that was something that I really enjoyed. I'm still figuring out what I want to do with said degree, but it's good to have that. And it really opened up a lot of doors and has opened a lot of doors, just being able to have that piece of paper that, basically says you have discipline. You can get through a lot of situations. You're smart enough to learn. You're smart enough to show up every day and be on time to earn this degree. And I think that's what a degree says about you.
That's really, that's well said. Thank you. Yes. So you're in the Chicago area now. You're doing some commentary for one of the stations there, I believe, and you're going to do Illinois State football this year.
Yeah.
That ought to be fun. Is this something you'd really like to try to make a career out of, you think?
I would love to, and it's difficult. I've only been doing it for about a year, the media circuit, and it hasn't happened as quickly as I would like. I would love to, have a network job, but obviously, as you probably know, you're very well aware that it's difficult, and especially for a guy like me. I'm not a Hall of Fame player. Right. I'm a guy that bounced around, backup tight end, a bunch of teams. I'm not Rob Gronkowski. I'm not going to retire and then just get a job off of my playing career, like a lot of guys are able to. So it's a little bit, difficult for guys, even if you were in the NFL, you don't have the numbers, you don't have the name that some of the big name guys. So started doing this last year. I just decided to start going around to training camps and tweeting about it. And so I went to training camps, started tweeting, and then I did the post-game shows with the Bears and CBS Sports last year. I work with NBC Sports on a independent contractor type basis. Last night I did a show, hosted a show, Sports Night in Chicago. I'm going on CBS Sports right after I'm done with you, going in studio. Great. We're filming some segments there in Chicago. I'm working for the 33rd Team, which is Mike Tannenbaum's media company. Yes. And then I'm doing my first bit of color commentary this season with Illinois State University. I'm just hoping to get some tape. Obviously it's just like football. Yeah. You got to do it to get better. You got to have tape to show other teams. Here's my tape to show other opportunities. If an opportunity in big time college football shows up, if an opportunity in NFL shows up, I want to be able to say, hey, here's my tape. Here's me showing I can do this. I can be successful at it. I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to study the stats, learn these guys' names, learn stuff about them, and be able to show that and do that in game situations. And it's something I really want to do, but as you know, it's pretty difficult to really get to the position to where you're where you want to be in that industry.
Well, it sounds like a good start, though. That you're doing the things you need to do, and you're in an area that you like, that you're from, right?
Yeah.
The Bears are always interesting, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I want to talk to you about your Eagles career and other things, but we have a commercial coming up here, so if you'll hang with me, it won't take very long, I promise, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
All righty. As I promised, we're right back with Bowen on the Birds with Clay Harbor from suburban Chicago talking to us today. Clay, I wanted to, before we get into this year's NFL situation, the Bears and the Eagles and so forth, a little bit about your career. I remember you came aboard in 2010, which was a really exciting year, I thought. It's one of those years that kind of gets overlooked by fans a little bit. I was noticing today on Twitter, some fan was dredging up the year after the Super Bowl win. The Eagles lost a playoff game at New Orleans, and they had a lead, and Alshon Jeffrey deflected a pass into an interception. They could have won that game. I didn't really think they were anywhere near as good as they had been the year before, but people still talk about that team, that maybe it could have won another Super Bowl. I don't think it could have, but nobody talks about 2010. And I really thought, I remember the playoff game you guys played at the Link against the Packers, and I believe the Packers won the Super Bowl that year, if I'm not mistaken.
They did, unfortunately, yeah.
And you were marching down the field with time left on the clock, and Michael Vick, who had a wonderful season. I mean, he had maybe his best year in the NFL, all told, running and passing. But Mike was still that guy, that on the edge guy. And the way I remember it, it was like first down, and he had a lot of time left, and he threw up a prayer into the end zone for Riley Cooper, and it got picked off. And he said afterwards, I just wanted to try to make something happen. And I'm sitting there thinking, and it's easy for me because I don't play, but I'm thinking, you had like 3 more downs and plenty of time to make something happen, oh my God, to lose a playoff game that way. But what did you think that year? What did you think of that team, of that game? What do you remember?
Oh, that was a great year. Honestly, just being a part of that, that was my rookie year. I was coming in as a 4th round pick. Didn't know what to expect from Missouri State. We have 5,000 to 10,000 fans at our game every day, and then just coming into Philly and just being a part of that was incredible. Coming in, we started the season with Kevin Cobb. Cobb goes down, and Michael Vick, this guy, I grew up watching, like, oh, that's Michael Vick. Used to play with him on Madden, and just to see him take off the way he did that year was great. And I have 2 memories that really always stick out to me about that game. One was the Monday Night Football game against the Redskins. I remember the first play of the game, getting the first 15, Marty Morningwig, drawing it up in the meetings before the game, and I'm seeing myself. It was like my first game active. I was active for like the first couple of weeks. I was inactive for like the next 4. I was back active, and I see the first play of the game. We're going deep, but I have a block against Brian Arakpo on the edge, 1-on-1, and that was the year Brian Arakpo was like, he was killing people. Arakpo was a guy that, just had a cachet of pass rush moves. No tight end ever blocked him 1-on-1. They're really going to have me block Arakpo 1-on-1 while they go deep here. And I lost some sleep that night, but fortunately, it all went well. If you watch the tape, next time you see that highlight, look at the edge. And I almost got called for a hold there. That would have been a very different game if I would have. But got it done. And then the other one, obviously, is the Miracle in the Meadowlands Part 2.
That's right. You're in the picture. You're in the picture there. Yes.
I love that. Still got that paper article. I was in like the USA Today. Thanks, obviously, is all Deshaun. I'm just running behind him with my hands up, holding up the touchdown sign. But just to be on the field for that, in the locker room right after that was one of my favorite memories. I remember Coach Reed got doused with the Gatorade and the ice because we had just won the division with that game. And he gets doused and everybody gets really quiet. Next thing you know, he picks up the Gatorade jug and throws it up over his head, and it goes through the ceiling and then comes back down with half the ceiling. And then everybody just starts going.
I never knew that.
Yeah, then everybody starts going crazy, jumping around. That was another memory in that playoff game.
Yeah,
I remember, like you said, it was a back and forth game with the Packers. Driving down the field, I think we're down 4 or 5. We needed a touchdown, plenty of time left, and just Mike went with the 1-on-1 shot with Riley. Was just a bit underthrown. I still think maybe Riley could have, just at least interfere with the guy. Don't let him come.
Yeah, down. I don't think he tracked it well. It looked like to me.
Well, you just grab his face mask if you have to. That's the end of the season. Right. Obviously, it wasn't a great ball, but and I remember thinking like, man, it can't be over because it was such a emotional swing. And then for me personally, I just felt like I had to get better. I was a rookie. I'm like, I remember telling myself at the end of the year, if you don't improve, you don't start getting better, you ain't gonna last in this league very long. And I did gradually improve. Fortunately, was able to stay in for a while and make a career of it. But very exciting year, and I think that team underachieved. And along with myself, I always feel like if I could have been a little bit better, maybe we could have won 1 to 2 more games and done some things there. But I think that team underachieved. You have Vic, LaShawn, receiving core
Right.
was great with Deshaun and Jeremy.
80 out there, it was yeah.
Old line was solid. Jason Peters, Todd Harrimans, Winston Justice. I mean, we had Max Jean Gillis was solid. We had a great offense, I thought.
And the defense wasn't bad either, really. You had Trent Cole,
we never really had that, and Trent Cole, Jaquay Parker had a solid year.
Yeah.
Quentin Michael on the back end was a safety I always look back on as a guy that could really play and was just a smart player. And I thought it was a good team. Good coaches, too. With Marty Mornaway, we had Dick Duran. I mean, obviously, Doug is a quarterback coach. We had a lot of good coaches on that roster as well.
I don't want to belabor 2010 too much, but the end of that regular season, it seemed like set up the disappointment. You had that weird thing with the Minnesota game that was postponed for a snowstorm that never quite arrived. And then you played, and that quarterback nobody ever heard of beat you. And, it just seemed like things were kind of not going the right way going into that playoff game. But the playoff game itself was well played, I thought,
Yeah, it was. And then going in 2011, we finished 8-8. And, that was the year with, Vince Young, the dream team. It's funny because Vince Young, nobody even met Vince yet. He had just signed, he'd done his press conference. Guy hasn't even met anybody on the team. And he says the dream team thing, and that just took off. I mean, you got, I don't know who was it last year. Maybe it was Miles Sanders or somebody on the Eagles team that said all-star team or something. And that didn't go anywhere. And I was like, just thinking back, I'm like, Vince literally just in a interview that he'd never even met the team says dream team.
It was a setup. It was they were asking because there were so many. You remember the circumstance? You had the lockout, and then all these free agents were being signed at Lehigh.
Rogers, Cromartie,
while you're in camp, half the team is being assembled. And so almost they had the interviews in that little tent there, and almost every guy was asked something like that. Is this like the most astounding bunch of talent and they all said stuff, but he was the guy that said dream team, and that I felt sorry for him, because it's not like he walked up there thinking I'm going to say that we have a dream team. I mean, he was asked a question, but it showed me the limits of free agency that year, and that you just can't assemble a team right before the season starts and have the pieces fit together right. It was just so many of those moves were just disastrous. It just, they weren't the right guys in the right spots.
Right. Yeah.
They came up with Namdi, they hadn't even thought about signing Namdi. Now the Eagles, when they sign a free agent in March, they've spent months researching this analytically. They know exactly maybe they're wrong, but they know exactly what they want from this guy, what his injury history is, what type of person he is, what kind of system he plays in.
He's just learned from his mistakes, because it's the same team. It's Howie. Howie just learned, and he's just gotten better to the point where I think he's top 5 GM. I mean, the stuff he's been able to pull off in the past several years, I mean, it's pretty unmatched, and it's pretty incredible. I mean, you just look at the running back position. You let Miles Sanders walk. A lot of people wondering, what are you doing here? But then you look at the value he's able to bring in. I think you got 4 guys getting paid the amount that Miles Sanders is this year. The top 4 guys.
It's a stronger room. It's a stronger room than they had last year.
Swift and Penny stay healthy. I think it's going to be an incredible running back room. I know it's a big if, but you still got Gainwell and Scott there on the back end behind them. I mean, I think Swift is great out the backfield, catching the ball, and then Penny is one of the most efficient backs in the league. When he's healthy, he's as efficient as anybody. You look at any statistic, the Pro Football Focus stuff, efficiency stats they got, the yards per carry in the past 2-3 years. I mean, any statistic, when this guy's on the field, he is one of the most efficient in the game. Then you put him behind Jason Kelsey. I mean, I don't know if you got Juergens or Steen. You put him behind Lane Johnson. You put him behind Mailata. I mean, he's gonna have a big year.
Absolutely. I think you're right. Which brings me to a question I have for you. How do you see the Eagles? in Philly, everybody, I think there are two thoughts. One is, gee, they're at least as good as they were going to the Super Bowl. But two, I think we all know, and having been through this fairly recently, teams that go to the Super Bowl, for whatever reason, all kinds of stuff happens the next year. Guys get hurt. The schedule's different. It just doesn't seem to come together a lot of times for a team that very next year for whatever reason. But I think most fans think this is as good a team as there is in the NFC. Are the Eagles still the NFC's best to you?
I think they are. And I think the reason that this is different, I mean, Jalen Hurts is just a guy that you can count on, and he can do so many. He's so good with the zone read scheme, and obviously you still got these weapons in the backfield with him. I think the offensive line, you've kept the same offensive line. I mean, obviously Cermorello's gone, but you've kind of reloaded there with some of the young guys they got. And Juergens was waiting in the wings. I know he's a center by trade, but I think he'll be good at guard. Dillard's gone, but I think they've done a good job of reloading that group. And then same wide receiver crew. Obviously, at some point you're gonna have to pay Devontae Smith soon, but you still got him on a rookie contract with A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and I think a guy that people kind of undervalued here is Dan Arnold. I think he's a guy that could be on the field with two tight ends. He's a talented player. I watched him in Jacksonville for a couple of years there. I really think that he's a good player. My only question is defensively. Obviously, the defensive line, I think they're going to be nasty. I mean, you got the pass rushers. My only questions is how are the linebackers going to be? Obviously, you got high hopes. These young guys, and you bring in Moreau. He was a Bear last year. He's okay. Obviously you have Nakobe Dean, who's got a scout, basically a redshirt year to sit behind TJ and Kaiser. How's he going to do? I mean, linebacker is an important position. I think Reed Blankenship's good. He had 4 solid games, and Terrell Edmonds is good insurance for that. And I love the draft pick that they got.
But you're making a lot of changes there. You're probably having 5 different starters than last year's defense, and another defensive coordinator coming in from outside.
You're losing your offense and defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So linebacker, your offensive coordinator's gone, your defensive coordinator's gone. Okay. Can they reload? I mean, that's a lot to lose. I mean, defensive coordinator, your play calls are different. Now your players are different. There's a lot going on right there. So I think that they're going to be just as good. They got the players, but how are the coaches? How are the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator? How do these players gel together on that defensive back end? I think the offense will be great. And people are sleeping on Dallas. I hate to say it, but Dallas looks good this year.
They do, but that's been said so many times now. It's almost like the boy who cried wolf. I went through a period there probably several years ago when I was convinced, Dallas they drafted so well. They've got this, they got DeMarcus Ware, they got this guy, they got that guy, and it never amounts to anything when the season's over. I don't know, why, but it just doesn't seem to ever work out for them. But yeah, the talent, there's a lot of talent in Dallas. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if their offensive line is as good as it's being touted. And they have this thing now, you saw yesterday with Zach Martin not happy with his contract. Yeah. And they're in kind of a tight spot there contract-wise. They don't really have a ton of money to give to Zach Martin. They've got like half their team coming up for free agency after this season. And, so there's some things there. I know Dak Prescott there's some people down there who are down on him. I don't think they've done a great job with the coordinators and the coaching. Frankly, I'm not a Mike McCarthy guy,
And now he's calling plays. So we're going to see how that goes. And you're right. I mean, Dallas is historically, lately, been underachieving franchise, underachieving team. So how will they do this year? But looking at the team, and they were good last year. And a lot of people kind of underrated. I know Dak threw a lot of picks, but the Giants aren't bad either. And I'm a big Brian Dable guy. He was my wide receiver tight end coach when I was in New England for a little bit.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was a smart guy, man. The guy's he knows how to put his players in the right position to win games. But then again, if Saquon's not there, which seems to be an actual possibility, they pay Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, different quarterback when Saquon's.
Oh yeah.
Versus when he's not. I mean,
I don't want to get too far away from the Giants, but you bringing up Dable in New England reminds me of something I wanted to ask you. I saw this on Pro Football Reference. You got a ring from the Patriots that year, right? They won the Super Bowl.
They won the Super Bowl. I played 5 games, but most teams, if you played a snap with the team, you've played a game, they're going to give you a ring. But the Patriots are one of the only teams that if you are not on the team at the time they win the Super Bowl,
you got to be kidding me.
They're not going to give you a ring. In my agent reached out to him like, hey, does Clay get a ring? And they're like, oh, sorry, we don't give rings to players who aren't on our roster when we actually win.
That sucks.
So no, it's okay. It's like, I kind of wanted it, kind of didn't. Just another season there. You started off great in OTAs and taking some 2 reps. Next thing you know, I get hurt. I have to have bilateral adductor surgery, it was a minor surgery. I was out for like 2 months. And I come back, 2-3 months. I come back in training camp and didn't think I was going to make the team. Bags were packed. Literally, I only played the last 2 preseason games. And they told me, like, hey, take your time. We'll put you on PUP. And I go, no, I want to play. They're like, no, we love you. We'll put you on PUP. And I'm like, no, I think I'm good. So I go out and thought I wasn't even going to make the team. Ended up making the team. Only lasted 5 games. Deflate gate that year. It was a little weird start to the year. But then thinking, end of that season, what I could have missed, like what I missed by not being able to stay on that roster that year. And then thinking again, because I had a, contract offer to stay in Jacksonville, and I decided I wanted to go to New England, even though it was a more difficult team, more difficult roster. I wanted to play with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and Bill Belichick. And I'm thinking, man, I had the same exact contract in Florida, no state tax. And my job was secure instead of, chasing this team and trying to win a Super Bowl and all that stuff. But I mean, in hindsight, everything is 2020.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We have another commercial coming here, Clay. Hang with me and we'll be right back after this.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
And we're back with the last pre-training camp, Bowen on the Birds. And I want to thank Clay Harbor again for hanging in here with me and helping me out today. He's been a tremendous guest, and I'm going to belabor his patience even further. You mentioned the offensive line there a minute ago, Clay. I guess you probably saw yesterday the Eagles brought back a guy that you played with.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis Kelly is an Eagle again. Which
I remember DK. DK was an awesome guy. He looks like the Undertaker from WWF. If you haven't watched that, but I think he's a swing tackle. He can be on either side. He could play.
They really needed that because losing Dillard like that, they didn't have that swing guy. They have Jack Driscoll, but they ask him to fill in oftentimes at guard and tackle, and Jack gets hurt. He's been hurt several times the last few years, so he doesn't get hurt bad, but he gets hurt enough. You need another veteran guy who's played a lot of games in the league, ought to have something left, certainly to come in here and there and play. And, that was a trade that everybody thought, oh boy, you remember that Dorial Green Beckham? Everybody thought, this guy, he was a high pick, and Tennessee's giving up on him so quickly. The Eagles have swooped in here. Well, Dennis Kelly ended up starting for them for several years, and Dorial Green Beckham could only run a slant and wasn't all that interested in doing anything else.
I was gone by that point, and I was still playing, so I don't know what really happened with the Dorial thing. I remember thinking that was going to be a great move and a great deal for him, but for whatever reason, I mean, you probably know better than me about that point in the Eagles season what happened with him. But I think DK is a great addition. I think Howie looks at this roster better than any than any GM in the league. He sees, okay, this could be a problem. What happens if this guy gets hurt? What happens if this guy gets hurt? What happens if this guy gets hurt? You got to be prepared for that. And you bring in a veteran guy. When you're a team that's ready to win now, you got to have good backups. You can't rely on a guy that you're not sure it's a 50-50 how he's going to react during the season. Got to have veteran backups. And Dennis Kelly is a smart guy. He's been around the league. He knows what he's doing, and he will do a good job for the Eagles if he's asked to come in there. And that offensive line won't miss a beat. I think they're still the best O-line in the league. Landon Dickerson, Kelsey, still there, incredible. Hall of Famer, obviously.
Yeah, let me ask you about Kelsey. So you played a couple years with that guy, 3 years with that guy. Did you foresee? I mean, he is like the mayor of Philadelphia now. He is an iconic figure in this city.
So crazy.
Could you see that in the guy that you knew back then? Did you have any inkling of that?
When he came in, he was a guy that was fighting for a spot, on the
sixth round pick. Yeah.
6th round pick, fighting for a spot on the roster. Then, he actually starts playing. You think, okay, this guy's pretty good, but you don't know who this guy's going to turn into. Thought he was going to be a good player, but to see his longevity and what he's been able to do year in and year out, you saw the athleticism right away. It's like, man, this guy can run and move, but he just came into that position and has really held it down and has been, the best in the league at it. And, Brandon Graham, another guy, me and him got drafted together. He's still playing. I'm waking up with back pain, not playing football game. This guy's still playing in the NFL. I'm like, BG, at training camp last year, I saw a lot of you guys out there talking. I go, BG, how the heck are you still doing this? Yeah. I'm waking up after working out for an hour on the elliptical, and I have back pain. You're over here still taking on double teams. He's like, man, I think it's my diet. It's my diet. I've been eating a little bit better, and I started doing some yoga. I'm like, BG, that ain't it. So I don't know, what kind of workout program you're doing, but I mean, BG, to have the year he had last year, coming off of that injury, was pretty incredible. And there's another question. Can BG duplicate what he did last season? Especially now, I think he's 35 years old, 34. I mean, that's going to be hard to do. And taking a lot of snaps, can BG continue to be that good?
Well, they have a lot of depth there, with Nolan Smith coming in, with Josh Sweat, with some of the other guys they have. They really they still have Derek Barnett, in the wings. Yeah. I mean, I doubt he makes the team, but he's around, So, there's depth there. But, yeah, BG had a hell of a year. A lot of those stats, they had 70 sacks last year.
Yeah.
I doubt they're going to have 70 sacks this year. Teams are going to be more, cognizant of that. And just the way things work in the NFL, it doesn't seem like you have a whole bunch of turnovers one year, you're not going to get that many. Even if you play as well the next year, the ball just doesn't fall in your hands as much, it seems. Yeah. Sacks are kind of like that to me. I don't know if you can do 70 sacks again, but I do think they're going to be really good up the middle with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis adding on to Fletcher Cox, even though they've lost Javon Hargrave.
Yeah.
Who's really, really a tremendous player, an underrated player, I think. But I just think that defensive line, they've really – there was a time a few years ago when they kind of kept their fingers crossed because everybody was over 30 and they didn't have a lot of depth. And I do think they have depth now. Obviously, it would be a problem if one of those older guys got hurt like BG. With BG, the main thing I see at this point is leadership.
Yeah.
This team has the thing that made this a Super Bowl team, I think, last year was the leadership.
Yeah.
It was so strong. Jalen Hurts, for a guy his age, is incredible in that
unreal
sphere. And then you have guys like Kelsey, like BG, and that's going to be the real test of this, whether this team can keep it rolling over the next several years, is those leaders are going to age out. Fletch, and you're going to need a new generation of leaders coming in and picking up that torch. And that's always a little tricky, I think, in locker rooms.
Absolutely. And I think they've done a good job of reloading the talent, but we'll see if some of these guys can really pick up, in the leadership level. And obviously Fletch, I remember Fletch getting drafted, my second year, and him coming in right away, just being such a big time player. And obviously BG and Kels, and just seeing those three guys still there and still doing it at such a high level is incredible. But Jalen Hurts, man, you can't say enough about him. You know, he's a guy that's just all football all the time. He's not a guy you see and you hear about, you know, social media, you hear about all these guys, these football players, they're out partying, they're doing things they shouldn't be, quarterbacks too. Jalen Hurts is all football. He is all business. That's his priority 1, his priority 2, and his priority 3 is winning football games. And he's in the weight room. He's in the film room. He is studying football. And a lot of the young quarterbacks now, they have other things going on. But Jalen Hurts is a guy. That's why one of the reasons I think the Eagles are going to be fine and respect him so much. He's not a guy that's going to be out and doing things. He is studying. He's in the film room. He's getting that done, and he is just focused.
He's not going to be satisfied with last year or with, you know, the amount of improvement that he was able to make, which was tremendous. I've said before on this podcast, and it's not any secret because I was still writing when he, you know, the year before, I was skeptical. You know, they lost to Tampa Bay in the playoffs. The year he took over for Carson Wentz, and I didn't like the way he played that day. I thought, you know, he's a great leader. Sure, he's a great guy, but is he a top quarterback? But he showed me, you know, he showed me. And
like, what was the reason for that big jump? Was it him? Was it A.J. Brown? I remember coming to training camp after being at Bears camp and just thinking, wow, like the Eagles are miles ahead of where the Bears are. And in particular, Jalen Hurts is miles ahead of where Justin Fields is. So is that the receiver? Like, what is that?
I think you're onto something there. I think that's part of it. There was a big thing made after that Tampa loss. Looking back over the season, people looked at a lot of the analytics and sides of the field that he threw to and patterns that he didn't like to. And he was not big on going over the middle.
Yeah.
And teams really figured that out and made it very hard for him to get the ball outside. Suddenly A.J. Brown's there and they're going over the middle all the time. And that helped. I mean, and I do think a quarterback needs good receivers. You know, you don't often see in the NFL, like the receivers can't make the quarterback, but you know, you do have to have them, you know, and with him and Devontae Smith and Goddard, you know, he really had good weapons last year and they really schemed it well. But I do want to ask you about Dallas Goedert. That's my agree or disagree this week. I'm always supposed to have one of those, and usually I forget it until about this point in the show. But Dallas Goedert, I think he can be the best NFC tight end this year. Now, in saying that, that lets me not compare him to Travis Kelce, but I do have to compare him to Kittle and some other pretty good players. You know, how do you see that?
I think that's not a bad assessment. I'm a big Dallas Goedert guy. I think Kittle maybe is a little bit better right now. They're both solid blockers. Kittle, 11 touchdowns last year. Goddard only had 3, but Goddard only had 2 drop balls last year. He had a great contested catch rate. The guy can just get open. He's hard to guard. And
well, I think they could go to him a lot more. You know, I think his stats could explode if they really, you know, they do have Devontae and they do have A.J. Brown.
You know, 101 passer rating when targeted. Like, if you targeted this guy more, he would catch the ball more. He's just so many weapons out there. I mean, I think you can't say good enough things about Dallas Goedert in my book. I think he's better than Zach Ertz was because he can do both. He can block and he can catch balls. I think he's as good in the pass game. I think he's just as explosive, if probably more explosive, and I think that he's a much better blocker. So I'm a big Goddard fan, and I just did a hit with the 33rd team where I had to rank my top 7 tight ends. I had him at 3. You know, people saying he's not. I put him above Kittle, but I put him above Mark Andrews. I put Kittle above him, but him above Mark Andrews. People murdered me saying Mark Andrews should be above Goddard. And you know, I think Goddard has such good run after catch. You know, Mark Andrews averages like 0.03 yards after catch, and Goddard's like 5 to 6 yards after catch. The guy just gets you another half a first down every time he catches the football on average. So this guy can just make things happen. He was my 3rd best tight end in the league, and I put him above Hockenson, put him above Andrews, right behind Kelce and Kittle. I think he can jump over Kittle too. So I agree with you on that.
Well, all righty. Well, thank you very much, Clay. Well, believe it or not, we have one more of those commercial breaks, and then we'll wrap it up, and I'll actually let you go about your day. But let's get to that commercial and go forward.
Hey, Birds fans, the NFL schedule has arrived and Philly Sports Trips has all the details now. Visit the site phillysportstrips.com. This is sure to be an epic season. Be sure to go there now to make sure that you don't get shut out. Join us in Tampa, LA, Seattle, or when we get revenge in Kansas City. Don't want to fly? No problem. Gather up your crew and hop aboard one of our signature boisterous bus trips to DC or New York. Sign up now and make sure to mention A2D. Don't miss out on the best Philly fan experience anywhere. Philly Sports Trip customers always stay at the best hotels and meet NFL legends. Book today.
And we're back with Bowen on the Birds and Clay Harbor, former Eagles tight end and budding media superstar out in the city of Chicago.
Let's hope.
Clay, one thing I really did want to get to today before I let you go is 10 years ago, Eagles training camp, some of you guys went to a concert. Something happened there with Riley Cooper, your teammate.
Yeah.
He said something to a security guard that really affected the rest of Riley's career, I think. Certainly affected that team. Affected some of your teammates' views of the coach, Chip Kelly. It was one of the strangest things I've ever covered as a reporter. I'm not sure I covered it real well. Looking back on it, I think I took what Chip was telling me and what some of the leaders of the team were telling me. I took it at face value, and maybe I should have been a little more skeptical of because it turned out in later years, there are guys still talking about that. I saw something with Kerry Williams, just a few months ago where he was talking about how he never respected Chip Kelly after that, and so forth. So you were there at that concert, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And you were a guy who was reasonably close to Riley Cooper at the time.
Yeah.
How did that hit you, and what was the aftermath of that like for you?
It was interesting. Obviously, Riley and I were in the same draft class. I was a 4th round pick. He was a 5th round pick. We hung out in the same crews, and Riley, for the most part, I got along with Riley. I thought that, I was always a guy who erred on the side of, like giving people another chance. And, I thought that, he definitely made a mistake, but it was tough because, for me, I grew up in a small country town. I dealt with a lot of that growing up. So for me, it probably hit different than it did a lot of people, to whereas I was I've experienced stuff like that before where a lot of people, maybe hadn't in that sort of situation. Because, for me being like a solo minority in an all white town, there's good people and there's bad people, just like everywhere you go. And, I had a lot of good people in my experience from that town, but there was a lot of stuff I had to deal with too growing up. So for me, I felt like I experienced it a little different because I did have friends like growing up that would, maybe use a term that they let their parents, they heard from their dad or their cousin or something, and then, apologize about it. So it was weird for me because being a friend of Riley and, it kind of divided the team. If you were still friendly with him after that, then it felt like you were being looked down upon as from some of maybe the other guys on the team. Wow. So it did strain the locker room in a sense to where you kind of had to distance yourself from that. And it did affect Riley in his career. And with Chip, I think that did people, if somebody else did that, they're gone. But it's the fact they needed Riley that year as a receiver, that he put that ahead of the type of guy that you want on the team instead of maybe further disciplinary actions, maybe suspend him for a few games. Right. Maybe you do something like, you don't cut him. You say, hey, we're going to sit you out for a few games. This is a big issue with your team, especially when the amount of, Black African Americans you have in a locker room. And when you think about what that word means to a lot of those people and, the history of what that was, and just to, sit them out for a couple practices and let them get some sensitivity training, you felt like more could have been done. And you felt like Chip took the easy way out instead of risking a game or two. He didn't.
That's what I remember most is, how pictures come up on your phone. I had what they did that day that the story broke, they actually had Chip talked, and they had Riley come out to that little courtyard in the back of NovaCare there.
Yeah.
And Riley talked, and they both talked pretty well. And I was kind of impressed at that point. I thought, well, they're not hiding from this. They're not trying to deny that that he said this, or anything stupid like that. They're getting out there. And Chip said at that point, he's going to go away from the team. And then all of a sudden he was back, and it was like 2 days.
It was like a couple practices, and he's back, and everyone's
and I was like, wait a minute, what happened here? I was expecting some sort of, I didn't expect him to, walk through the streets of Philadelphia, being pelted with garbage or anything, but I expected some sort of. He talked to thought leaders about the impact of this word, or he met with his minister or something, and
yeah.
And he went home for the weekend. Now he's back. Okay, let's go on.
Definitely felt more could have been done, and Chip would have he would have kept a lot more of the guys in that locker room on his side if he would have done more. And obviously, race, it's still playing a role today, and and obviously the politics and everything that our country's going through. But I definitely, looking back, like, I thought Chip could have done a better job of handling that situation, and that's one of the places I think he kind of slipped up there.
So what was Riley like after that? Did you ever really get to talk to him about it? And do you have any contact with him today?
No, I don't have contact with him today. And Riley was one of those country guys. Like, there would be little comments that he would say in like a joking manner, because I would be one of the guys that would be hanging out with, say I'm with Riley and some of the other white guys on the team. I hung out with both. Like, usually it's how it is. Like, it was back then. Black guys hung out, white guys hung out. I would split time between both groups, and maybe there's a comment here or there in a joking way, and I always took it, oh, ha, like, whatever, But then after that happened, you didn't really hear any of the the jokes anymore, to where people obviously you don't know if that's their real feelings or they just joking about something like that. But I don't have contact with Riley anymore. But on the on the team, he was a buddy, and it was an interesting dynamic after that, because like I said, half the locker room didn't really it didn't sit well with them. So you kind of had to distance yourself from him, even if he was a friend of yours.
And just like you said about your career, about how things had broken a little differently with some of the injuries, you could have played, a couple more years. When he left the Eagles, he never played in the NFL again. And I kind of think it wasn't that he was injured or anything. It was that nobody wanted to bring that in. He was a marginal player.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to carry that weight into their locker room.
Yeah, he definitely.
Had he not had that behind him, I think he would have gone somewhere else and at least played for a year or two and been on a practice squad and stuff.
Yeah, he had a couple of nice years. He's a big guy that could move and catch the football. He had good.
When his Eagles contract ran out, that was it. You never heard another word. You didn't hear about teams working him out. You didn't hear anything.
Yeah, it was kind of it for him, and they, that's unfortunate. But that's, I think that was really the consequences of it. Maybe he didn't get disciplined with Chip, but in the long run, and ended up coming back.
In the long run, he did pay. Yeah, as a writer, I've often thought if you could ever get that guy to sit down with you, and talk about it, that would be a wonderful story. But I'm sure that's never going to happen. He's just not.
Maybe at some point he would. I don't even know. I don't think he has the same phone number anymore. I haven't texted him in a while. It's funny. I ran into Mike Kafka the other day in New York City. I was in New York City hanging out, and then I get a text. Mike Kafka still has the same number, and he goes, "Hey, I hadn't talked to this guy in years." And I get a text, "Hey, are you at such and such restaurant right now?" And I look, and it's Mike Kafka. I go, huh. I said, "Yeah, are you here?" And he's like, "Yeah." Next thing you know, Allie, his wife, and him pop up.
Oh, that's great.
And he's he's the offensive coordinator for the Giants. And
he's doing real well. Yeah.
I got to meet him and the rest of his coaching staff, and the wives were all out for food and drinks, and we got to catch up for a bit and talk about the old glory days. When we were both 4th round picks for the Eagles. There's
And he was also a Chicago area guy, wasn't he? He played
Northwestern.
in Northwestern.
Obviously, you see Northwestern in the news. He was a
Oh
Northwestern.
my Lord! Yeah, maybe he needs to take over there and get things back.
I thought about that, but obviously, I mean, you're walking into a mess right now.
Oh,
if
wow.
you go back to Northwestern,
Yes.
and I mean, he's on the trajectory to where in a couple of years he should be a head coach.
Yeah. And that's something that people are talking about now, is that with the NIL and with the transfer portal, if you're going to be a coach, you might as well be in the NFL. I mean, you're dealing with a salary cap and free agency if you're in college.
Oh man, I'm not a big fan, Les. I don't know about you, but for me, obviously I'm a guy that likes the old days, and I think about the changing of the college scene. It just doesn't seem the same to me. Obviously you want to pay these guys. You have this workforce. To me, it's like, hey, you're getting a free education. And I understand that, you want to pay these guys. The whole NIL is such a mess with the players getting paid this. The big schools are getting the best recruits. These guys are transferring year after year, like you're on an NFL roster, not staying at a team. And to me, it just turned into a big mess. But I'm also a guy that like those old school training camps. I'm sure you covered the difference. It's not even the same sport. You talk about training camps pre-2011, 2012, before the collective bargaining agreement. I did 2 of those back at Lehigh with Andy Reid. Okay, that was not for the faint of heart. Those training camps, I still people. What's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life? Go Andy Reid training camp pre-2011. I can't believe. I remember calling my brother. I was like, just got drafted. I mean, I'm not cut out for this. I love football, and this is unbelievable. We had 24 straight days of practice, tackling, full contact. We're doing 2-a-days. No days off. Now you can't have 2 days. You have 3 practices, then you get an off day.
Yeah. It's totally, the science of it has totally flipped.
Oh,
I think they're right. I think they're totally right. It's more about getting everybody, in shape, but through getting no injuries until you actually are playing football that matters. And I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But on the NILs, what I thought initially, what I wanted to see happen, because a lot of these guys are disadvantaged and they do need something, So I thought, hey, a guy who's a great receiver can sign autographed pictures of himself, and make $10,000, $20,000 to send home to his family. But that isn't what's happening.
No, it's salaries. These guys are making more. They're making more in college than they will in the NFL.
That's amazing. It really is. It's just incredible.
And to me, it gave you something to pursue,
Yeah.
And okay, hey, you pursue this. You make the NFL. That's your goal. And for me, I was All-American as a sophomore. If I was an All-American as a sophomore now, Missouri State, guess what? I'm transferring to Missouri.
That's right. Or somewhere even bigger than Missouri.
I'm going to this guy showed as a sophomore. He caught 70 balls with 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now this guy's transferred. Now I'm playing at USC. And to me, I like the fact that I came from this small school, and I don't know, it's just different. And I know some people, it's a topic where you have a million different thoughts on it. But for me, I think there could have been some sort of a middle ground from this free for all versus us not getting it all back then.
Agree. Before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your Bears. I'm a guy, I like Justin Fields. I have a son who graduated from Ohio State, and I watch Justin Fields a lot. And I like, I'm a fan. I think he's a good quarterback. What do you see there? What's going to happen with them this year?
There's been a lot of comparison going back from Justin Fields to Jalen Hurts. I don't know if you've seen that on Twitter. I've been a guy pushing it a little bit. It's more of a hope thing for me. I hope that's what happens. But you look at Hurts' numbers versus pre-A.J. Brown versus post-A.J. Brown, right? And so now that the Bears got DJ Moore, now you got Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney's healthy. You got a better running back room with Donta Foreman, Roshan Johnson's rookie, Khalil Herbert. Now you have a better offensive line. You brought in Nate Davis. You drafted Darnell Wright, and that's why the Eagles were able to get Jalen Carter. So I'm hoping, as is everybody, that he makes a jump like Jalen Hurts did. They had a similar completion percentage, similar touchdown to interception, similar QBR. And now we're hoping he takes that same jump that Hurts did from years 2 to year 3. I think he'll make a jump Not quite the same jump because obviously you don't got the full team around, Hurts. It feels as Hurts did. But, overall, I think Fields will get better. If he stays the same, is literally the same player, he's going to improve just because the pieces around him have gotten better. He's just going to be better. And it's his second year in the system. But I think he will improve and the offense will get better. And it's his second year in Luke Getsy's system. All these things come around. I think the Bears will be better. Do I think they're going to win the division? No. Do I think they'll finish second in the division? Maybe, but probably not. I think you're going to Minnesota, going back and forth between Minnesota and Detroit this year. I think Kirk Cousins, had a solid year. Obviously, they got beat up pretty good by the Giants in the playoffs, and you saw what happened when the Giants came to Philadelphia and played the Eagles. I was at that game. It was a bloodbath.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see with the NFC North this year, and then you got the Lions. How are they going to do this year? I think they finished 7-2. Their last
pretty good. Yeah.
Jared Goff, their offense is back. They brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They brought in Cam Sutton to that defensive backfield that was bad. They drafted Brian Banks, the safety from Alabama. You bring in Jack Campbell. You got Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. They signed David Montgomery. I know they lost Swift, but overall, I think the Lions will be pretty good. So it's a two-man game. You got the Vikings, the Lions, and right below them, I'm putting the Bears and the Packers. Because who knows what Jordan Love is? To me, he's more like Jordan-like. I'm not sure if I'm going to give him that Aaron Rodgers yet, but
that's
I think
good. Okay. So before I let you go, where's the stadium going to be in Chicago? I hate, I didn't really like the rebuilding of Soldier Field anyway. Soldier Field to me was just so iconic. My dad had a story about when he was in the Army in World War II, and they took him into Soldier Field to watch a game. And it's on he was telling me, it's on the shore of the lake there. And and now I guess they're going to go off to the suburbs somewhere. What do you think is going to happen there?
I am in the vast minority of people. Most everybody around, they are happy about this. They want the Arlington Park, the big complex. To me, I'm a Chicago, and I live in the city. I like riding my bike down to Soldier Field. I'm going to a Bears game. I'm riding my bicycle along the lakefront. I'm going to the game. But if you drive there, it's a nightmare.
It is. Yes.
Then I realize that most people are driving. Probably me. I'm my condo. I ride my bike on the lakefront. It takes me 15 minutes to get there. Beautiful view. Ride on the lake, ride my bike. There's good bars and restaurants nearby. It's just an unbelievable visually. It's just unreal. You're driving in on Lakeshore Drive. Unbelievable when days the Bears aren't playing. Because if you're not driving on days they are playing, you're going to be stuck in traffic.
Yeah, that's miserable. Yeah.
It's a beautiful location in Chicago. And to me, this iconic place that I went to with my dad, growing up, and Soldier Field. And it just, to me, it means so much to be in the heart of the city. And now knowing that you're going to have to drive an hour out of town to go to the game, which a lot of fans are. So that's
a big difference. Yeah.
I love it in the city. It's going to be more accessible, and the Bears owners the McCaskies are going to make a ton of money off of it. They're going to have the real estate around it. They're going to be able to make money off the restaurants. They're going to own the stadium. They're going to make money from concerts. They're going to be able to have Super Bowls. You hear all the good stuff, but
yeah,
I'm being selfish. I love it in the city. I think it's beautiful historically, just for the things
I agree.
I love it there, and I would love for them to stay, work something out, maybe an ownership deal where it's 50-50 between the McCaskies and the city. You renovate it again. I'd be happy to pay some more of my tax. We're paying everything else for taxes. Why not throw a couple more dollars on there for the Bears Stadium? I'll be happy to chip in a little bit more there. So keep in Chicago, in my opinion.
All right. Well, Clay, I'll better let you go, but I really appreciate this. Was one of our best podcasts ever. You really lit it up for me, and it's really good to talk to you. And I sure wish you the best this year.
I appreciate that. I'll actually be down in Philly for the alumni game in the preseason in about exactly a month. Yeah, a month from this week. So if you're around the league, I'm sure I'll run into you.
I hope so, Clay. Take care.
Appreciate it, Les.
And that's it for this week's edition of Bowen on the Birds. I hope you enjoyed it.